our friends will be able to go over it too. So, all right, so we're gonna, like I said, skip over lesson 12. It's if you're interested in like how effects happen, we already done drop shadow. One effect that it does that we haven't really done in any other lesson is like bevel and emboss and outer glow. But they're things that if you're familiar with them, cool. But if not, I hardly ever have used that stuff. Drop shadow is probably the one that y'all are more likely going to be using on a somewhat consistent basis. And even then, I just usually err with the side of caution. Try not to go overboard with um, the use of the drop shadow. We do it at my job now with advertising, but it's such a small space that we work in terms of pixels that we need it to kind of make the text pop. But I wouldn't recommend going overboard. It's like display text. If you're doing body text, like say, just your article or your paragraph, they don't need to drop shadow, but maybe the display or the title text, you might use that there. But the rest of the lesson really just has to do with transparencies, and they're not commonly used. So we'll skip over that one. I'm gonna make sure you guys both got 13, the folder downloaded because there's a change in the file that I did and so that way we can go over and get started on that. So let's go ahead. We're going to open up the lesson 13 file. When it opens, it's going to ask you to update stuff. I'm going to tell you not to do that. So do not update. In fact, I'm going to get mine all set up so that I can put that on the recording. So we're going to open up the lesson 13. I am going to share my screen. All right. Just let me know in the chat if you are waiting for InDesign to open, because I mean I'm opening mine right now too. So, do. All right. So when the window pops up asking it says issue with links, hit don't update links. We're gonna talk about links. That's the first thing we're gonna discuss in lesson 13. All right. So let me know in the chat if you're still waiting on it. Just say that you're waiting, and we'll be good. Um, Somebody's messaging me. Maybe it's one of them. Oh, all right. I assume you guys are ready to go then, right? Lesson 13 is open. All right, cool. So with this lesson, we're doing it's actually like a little like magazine pamphlet. It's a multi-page, so you can actually it's the newsletter essentially. So this has got multiple pages in it, but we're really going to focus primarily on the cover. There's a couple things that when we get to the end, towards the end, when we're in the process of finishing things out, I'm going to leave them there on purpose. They're going to be incorrect, but it's on purpose to show you things. But the first thing that you're going to notice that when you look at your screen is that on the right side, this panel is now there and it's called links. And so we've seen links, and if you're not familiar with what they are, don't worry, I'm about to explain it to you. So the reason everything looks like garbage inside this program visually is because everything is linked. It's basically showing you a dumbed down version of an image. And so that helps a lot with InDesign being able to handle there's Silas. All right. Hey, Silas, make sure you go get the lesson 13 folder, re-download it because I made a change to it, okay? Get that and then pop it open. Let me know when the box comes up asking about the updates because you're gonna hit don't, like do not. So the reason that things look so bad is that they're linked. So for example, actually I can even stop sharing my screen for a second. All right, so the way that I illustrate this with an analogy is imagine that you have a server in, say, Alaska. And so the server is way off in Alaska and you're in Texas, right? And you're able to remotely access that content, which is great. Now, of course, the if the server goes down, you've lost your connection to all the content there, so your pictures won't load. But like, I'm trying to think of like the it's been so a little bit of a while. So when I worked at the book publisher, our server was actually in the attic of our building, and so there was a day that the server went down, and so all of us were like, "Oh crap!" So they got someone in, they fixed it, and they came back up. We could still edit things in InDesign. We just couldn't see our graphics. So the great thing about having links is all the images do not have to live on your computer. Image files take up a ton of space. And when you're working with with like really, really high res stuff, then sorry, y'all. When you're working with really high res photography, it takes up like a lot of space. So you will run out of hard drive space. Even though I have a nice computer, it doesn't have a whole lot of hard drive space. So it's a good idea to like even when you work for a corporation, they may have a separate server. When I worked for Wells Fargo as a broker, as a yeah, an insurance broker, we ended up having our server someplace else. It was actually, I think, in Chicago. And when I worked at the book publisher, like I said, it was up in the attic. So that's why I use the Alaska analogy. So let's pretend that we have all of our images and they're sitting in Alaska. Okay. So let's say the power goes out here. Well, we didn't lose any images. Let's say our computer crashes. We didn't lose any images. We might lose the InDesign file, but we didn't lose the images. And so that's what the link is meaning. What we're going to do is essentially, we're going to end up creating a package, but addressing links right now, they're on our computer. So if we look at this, there are two symbols there that we're concerned about. There's one that's got the red and the question mark. It looks like a stop sign. And the other one's a yellow with an exclamation point. Now, the yellow with an exclamation point, that's okay. Hopefully, this is the one that you see most often, if not all the time. Now, with this one, and I'm actually going to start sharing my screen now so I can kind of, you guys can walk through with me. So with this one, I'm going to choose this first part that says garden something or other. Um, Again, well, let me go over the anatomy here. So it'll have like the teeniest, tiniest thumbnail of what it is. This is the background image that we see with that fountain. It'll have the name of the file, and then it has the icon. So if there's one of these like yellow or red icons, they're there. If the link is fine, then it's blank. You wouldn't see anything. And then you have all these numbers. These numbers are actually page numbers. So if we wanted to, for example, I'm going to choose the last one, lily.jpg. If I click on that 8, it's going to take me to the very last page because this is an 8-page document. So if you see something and you're like, what the hell photo is this? And you don't know which one's missing, you can click on that number and it'll take you directly to that one. So you don't have to like try to guess or scroll, infinitely. Again, having worked on documents that have like quite a few hundred pages, that's a pretty helpful navigation tool. With that said, let's go to the first one that has the yellow, the garden fountain vertical. So I'm going to click on that one. If you look at the bottom of your panel, right now mine says one selected because that's the image I'm looking at. Then it come over to the right. It has a little disc with a little chain, like a teeny tiny chain there on towards the right. That one says relink to cloud or relink from CC libraries. So this is something like if you save content onto the Creative Cloud, that's going to be where you can relink it, and that's basically it's going to go, oh, okay, it's there, so it'll go and link itself back up. The second one is to relink. This is, as it says, to relink all missing files. So if something is missing, you'll have to go find it. We're going to take a look at that in just a little bit. The second one, or the third one, sorry, is go to link. I find this kind of redundant since you can click on the page number or the numbers there on the right-hand side. But the fourth one is the one that we're interested in for this. This is to update the link. So the yellow signal, the little symbol, is like a yield. And basically, it's InDesign's way of saying, hey, 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 something's different about this file. Do you want to see what's different? So it could be a lot of things. Jerry could have gone and done some touch-up work on the cover based on what our boss told us to say. Then I come in here and I'm like, oh, someone did something like updated the file, so I just need to update it. And so we're gonna click that one that looks like a circle with two arrows. It's called update link. Once you do that, that's basically the scenario that happened. This file was edited after the last save, so now it's gonna, update with anything that's been done. Basically, it looks like nothing changed. You can't really tell. So, but that's what the yellow symbol is. It's just kind of a caution yield. It's like, hey, hey, something happened. It's different. Do you want to check it out? So what we can do is we can actually go through all of these. So I'm going to click on graphic one honeybee, hold down shift and click on lily. Since these are all yellow, I'm going to go ahead and update all of them. Okay. So I just clicked on graphic one honeybee in the links panel. And then I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to click on lily at the bottom so that I can select all the graphic files that are there. And then we just have to hit that little circle with the 2 arrows. And it's actually going to go through and update everything in our document. Boom, there you go. Let me know if that did not work.
Paul, I have a question.
I got an answer. What's up?
I don't have any cautions. I have red question marks. When I opened the file, it said you have missing links. It didn't say modified. And I only
Aha.
had the option to click OK. There was no other option.
Okay. That's not a problem. We're actually going to address that in just a second. You have the image files and everything, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you know where they are, right?
Yes. As soon as
Okay,
I
perfect.
back up, yeah.
That's okay. I'm going to show you how to do that because you have basically all red stop signs, right?
Correct.
All right. Not a worry. Not a worry. All right. So that should be pretty quick and easy to do. So the yellow is what we want to see. That's a good thing. So moving on, Jerry, don't have a heart attack, but in this case, when we see that red sign, that's a problem. That's telling us that either the file has a different name, or the file has been moved, or worst case scenario, the file was deleted. And that's a huge issue because if it's deleted on a server, you can't get to it. So when we select that one, and for us, it's this garden news top piece, the title. When we select it and we look at the bottom of our panel, there's only 2 options. Now, personally, I don't use Creative Cloud. Also, rumor is they're getting rid of the actual cloud-based storage because, I mean, Adobe doesn't necessarily keep up with that. That's a lot of space. Also, you have to have an internet connection to access the content. It's annoying. Anyways, but I don't need the first one, but you'll notice that the circle with the 2 arrows, that's not an option because we can't update these. So InDesign is saying, whoa, 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 emergency, something's up with these files, something's missing. So you'll notice that the one that we can choose is the chain link called relink. So we're going to go ahead and relink this. Now, a lot of times it may be that the file moved. It may also be occasionally that the file has a different name. So for this one, I'm going to tell you that I changed the name. That's what I did. So I'm going to navigate to the lesson 13 folder into what's there, the links folder. Now for this one, it's actually the name has been changed to Garden News Masthead Fall. So instead of autumn, I changed it to fall. So when I select that file and hit open, that's going to update the file to the the new name, the new file with the new name. Does that make sense? Does that work for you guys? Is that working for you, Jerry?
Not quite. I was trying
Okay,
to.
I'll tell you what, why don't you share your screen real quick and we'll take a look at what you got.
I know what I did wrong. I needed to download. I hadn't downloaded the links yet. The links
To
folder.
download the linked folder. Well, that's why you're supposed to get the whole folder, girl.
I know. Messing up.
That's okay. That's okay. Make sure you grab everything that's in that folder, okay? You got some time. So but that's a big thing about that is if you see the yellow, that just means that somebody, updated the file that it's linked to. But that whole link idea, that's also why InDesign files are not that big. So for example, this one's only 9 megs. And I know it has like a couple embedded pieces, but that's really not big. I mean, if you built like a publisher file or something, holy cow, that thing would be massive. You'd start looking at 20, 30 megs, and email doesn't allow you to send certain sizes. So, there's a maximum amount. This, when you're dealing with large documents, this really does help in terms of storage as well. So just keep that in mind. If you see the yellow, you'll see the circle with the arrows. Just update it and see what's up. If you see the red sign, that means that things are missing. So, like for us, I renamed the file, and I'm gonna pick on Jerry on this one, but in Jerry's scenario, those files actually aren't there, and so that's why she's seeing that as well. So that's an excellent example of a possible scenario. But just keep that in mind. But linking, that's the thing, is you can keep them all in a folder and keep your folders organized. It's just gonna pull a thumbnail link from it, but that's also why they look terrible. Okay. And if you ever have questions on that, just hit me up. I'm more than happy to help you out with that. So, with that said, we're going to move on to the next part. So, what we're going to look at now, and this is actually what lesson 13 is about, but I don't like to use the book. The book does this weird whole process that's, quite honestly, I think it's stupid, and I have for years. So instead of doing the lesson the way that the book says to, I'm actually going to go ahead and just walk you guys through what we actually do professionally because I don't know a professional that normally does what the book does. So this is called packaging. There's a thing called pre-flight where you basically go through the first like 3 or 4 steps of packaging just to see if everything is cohesive. Honestly, don't even bother. I mean, if you're at that point, you might as well just start the package process because you can stop it. It's not a big deal. But packaging is basically what you do at the very, very, very end. It's going to create this really nice little folder that's self-contained. So we're going to pretend that we got everything done. Our boss says, "Hey, this newsletter is good to go. Let's get it all set up and packaged so we can send it to print." Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Did you get everything down, Jerry? All right. You're muted, but I'm going to assume you said yes. Okay.
Yes.
No worries. All right. So got my screen. So this is what we're gonna. Oh, and did the links get updated, Jerry? Like, do you still have the red dots? And you're also still muted, but that's okay.
Swear I unmuted myself. Okay. So I have the links folder down, everything downloaded from the file. I went into one of the caution signs to relink it. And I know how to do this. I don't know why
Okay.
it's not giving me the option. When I open the relink and I select the links file, it shows me all of the blue flowers, hydrangea, all that, but it's not giving me the option. I guess I can, you can only do this one at a time? It doesn't do it all at once?
Sometimes if it wants to, it will. And it's weird that I say it like that, but it's actually true. I've had it where InDesign goes, "Hey, we noticed that there's a few other files in here. Do you want us to update those?" And I'll say, "Yeah." And then
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't. So, um, I
that's why
mean,
I'm,
if you have, yeah, okay.
okay.
No biggie. So, and I'm just gonna kind of go through to start the process and
Sure.
whatnot, but don't worry about that. All right. Oakley dokie. So we're ready to go. We got everything set. And as I said, there's going to be some stuff in this file that is incorrect or broken, and it's like that on purpose so that I can show you certain aspects as we're putting things together. So to start the package process, we're going to go to File, and then it's the fifth option from the bottom, and it literally is called Package. It's like somebody could come to me and go, "Hey, on this Illustrator InDesign file, can you go ahead and create a package?" And this is exactly what they were telling me to do. Okay. So we're going to go to File, and we're going to go ahead and choose Package. All right. So this pops up a little panel. In the first part of the panel, and because I'm going to navigate you guys like through this just so you understand exactly what's going on in this process. So this is the summary. This is the first step. You definitely want to take a look at that. So for example, fonts, we have 4 fonts being used. None are missing, none are embedded, none are incomplete, and none are protected. So protected actually references copyrights. So fonts like Helvetica and Uverse and stuff like that, they actually are copywritten and you can't make copies of those. Okay. You'll see that we do have an issue. We have a little caution triangle. So links and images, we have 20 links found. So there are 20 different types of images in here, which sounds about right. We have none modified, none missing, none inaccessible, none embedded, and we have 2 that are using an RGB color space. That means that their settings are set to red, blue, red, green, blue. And I'm leaving that on purpose because I want to show you guys how you can actually go through and see on the list which ones are using the RGB. That way you're not trying to guess. Like this will actually tell you which files are doing it. Next, you see colors and inks. There are 4 processed color inks. Those are your CMYK. That's your 4. Okay. And then we have 2 spot inks. Um, I'm also leaving that there on purpose so I can show you guys how to find them as well. Although you would actually go into swatches and remember the one box that's got the circle, and then there's the one box that looks like white static or white noise static. That's how you could tell which one's spot and which one's processed. Next, we have external plugins. Probably going to be 0. I've only ever worked at one place that had a plugin called Triple Diamond for tracking jobs and stuff. So I really wouldn't worry about that. And this last part, I'm not concerned about it either. On the left side, the navigation, I do want to take y'all step by step on that because I want to show you how you can find things if you need to find something that's wrong. So when we take a look at font, I'm just going to click on font. You can see that they're using minions, so a minion and myriad. So we have minion pro, myriad pro, bold, bold italic, and regular. If you ever see Comic Sans, slap your hand. Don't you ever use Comic Sans as an adult unless you're a first grade teacher. But this will let you know which fonts you are using. And just as a general kind of rule of thumb, or as some people say like standard operating procedure kind of thing, I would definitely recommend 2 fonts max. 3, you're kind of pushing it, but like after that, you're just getting kind of wacky and crazy. If you're trying to make something look clean and professional, just stick with about 2 at the most. So these look good. We should be good to go there. So next, I'm going to click on links and images. This one, we do know that we have 2 RGB. Oh, there's Uthman. All right. This one we do. Hey, what's up, Uthman? You're gonna want to get lesson 13 open, okay? So we can see that there's a big list. Now, of course, this part kind of sucks if there's a whole lot of graphics. But as you look, you can see the name. We can see the type is Photoshop, for example. It's on page 4. It's linked. It's embedded. As you can see down here, you can see the RGB there as well as CMYKs. That's how you can find which image
It's
files
weird.
have. I got you. I know, right? It is weird.
When you're
What's
broken
up,
up,
Uthman?
I considered stepping from a car the other day just so you look at me.
There you go. All right. So when we're going through this list, that's how you can go through and find what's got RGB versus the CMYK. So the other one is the Lily file here, as we can see on page 8, is set to RGB. So looking at those images, just keep that in mind, okay? When we go to colors and inks, when we go here, we can see cyan, magenta, yellow, black. So we have our CMYKs, and then bright green and dark yellow. Those are probably the 2 that are spot colored. So now we would know which ones we have to go back and change to spot. But like I said, you would know that by looking at the swatches panel instead. Print settings, this is just set up for whatever printer. Like this one's set up for a LaserJet. I don't know why. But again, and also we don't have any plugins, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we're gonna pretend like everything got done correctly. So our pictures were switched to RGB, from RGB to CMYK, and our spot colors have been converted. Again, I'm leaving stuff the way it is on purpose. All right. Uthman, whenever you get lesson 13 open, go ahead and go to File, Package, and we're gonna start that process. That's okay, man. I totally get it. I totally get it. I built a garden and mowed the yard this morning, so and I haven't showered yet. I stink and I'm really tired, y'all. Okay, no worries, y'all. Plus, I recorded it, so it's in recording right now. So we've gone over this first package panel. So let's go ahead and hit the word package at the bottom. It's not done yet. So what it's going to do is go ahead and save the file that you have now. So we've done all these updates. We fixed the links. We updated, we relinked. So go ahead and hit save. And then, so this is where we're going to save the package. So hang tight because I do want to walk you through a couple of these options. It's just, it's good to know exactly what these are based on what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this to my desktop. Actually, I'm going to put it in my lesson 3. I could do that. Lesson 13. And then I'm going to call it package. I'm only doing that just you guys can put it in lesson 13 and call it package. I would definitely name the folder according to what it is. So if this is like, your fall or autumn newsletter, call it autumn newsletter 2024 or something like that. I'm doing this just so that we'll be able to tell the difference when we get in there and see what it is. So I've got lesson 13 folder. That's where I'm going to save it. And then I've renamed this package to the word package so I can tell what it is. These checkboxes. Okay. So what we're going to do is it's going to make a copy of every font that's being used. So we talked about, or we looked at, we saw there was Minion Pro and Myriad Pro. And so there's bold, bold, italic, and regular for Myriad, and there's only one of the minions. So if it is something that's not copywritten or protected, it will actually save a copy of this. Not everybody has the same fonts. Macs come with some basic standard fonts that Windows doesn't, and vice versa. But a lot of those you can go online and find. So this just makes a copy because if we're sending this to a printer, I want to make sure that they have access to the same fonts that are being used. Copy linked graphics. Now, this is where I needed to explain earlier what linked graphics were. So, we're pretending like all of our graphics reside on a server in Alaska, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, so I've got 20 different images out of the 100 that our client gave us, right? So the InDesign is gonna make a copy of those. It's not gonna take those files and move them. It's not gonna delete them. It's not gonna do anything else. It's just gonna literally make a copy and put them in the package so that because this is supposed to be self-contained. So this will have the fonts, this will have all the linked images that the printer needs. And they don't have to have access to our server in Alaska. It's literally just gonna make a copy, okay? This last checkbox underneath it is update graphic links in the package. What this does is instead of the package file trying to link to the server in Alaska, it's actually going to switch and link to the folder inside or all the graphics that are inside the package. So those two checkboxes, they have to go together basically. Use hyper extension. Yeah, I don't worry about document hyphenation. I don't include fonts and links from hidden or non-printed content. That's actually something to pay attention to. If something is hidden, it should be unhidden if you want people to see it. If it's not, if it's in an area that's not printed, like a slug or the pasteboard, then you probably don't actually want it to be printed. Also, sidebar, highly recommend that you go through and clean a lot of that stuff up, like take stuff out of the pasteboard that you're not using just to make the document look cleaner, it's less confusing, and it also can cut down on some of the sizing of the files, okay? All right. The next checkbox is include IDML. This is InDesign markup language. Um, I call it a legacy file. I recommend this because not everybody has the same version of InDesign. Printers actually don't update immediately, specifically because, and this happened when I worked in a print shop, there can be issues with it, like crashing, there could be security issues. So they actually will not, they'll usually be 1 or 2 steps behind. So doing an IDML file allows them to open up a newer file in an older version of the software. This is what we did when we built the department at Wells Fargo. And all of us designers were on different versions of InDesign. We had to use IDML until everybody got on the same platform or same level. So I usually leave that checked just as a precaution. And then this last one, it says include a PDF print. So you absolutely want to do that. PDFs are self-contained in themselves. So this would give the printer a visual that it doesn't require fonts to be installed. It doesn't require link to images or anything. It's a portable document file. It's literally what a PDF stands for. And so this gives them something visual to compare to when they print out a proof. Okay. Now, what I don't want to do is include a high quality print. I'm going to switch that to smallest file size. So why would I do that? Well, we're giving them just a sample, like a proof to use. Okay. So I always just put the small one in there because they got the InDesign file they can print from InDesign. So basically, I check everything except use document hyphenation and include fonts and links from hidden and non-printed content. And then I just switch the PDF to small file size. That's basically all I do on that. Okay. So I went ahead and called it package. Y'all can call it package. You can call it newsletter, whatever you'd like for your package, as long as you know what it is. Then I'm going to hit the word package on the lower right. Go ahead and start this process. But wait, there's more. Okay, so this part actually is kind of important. So this talks about copyrights, and you have to understand how this works because If you do something and use a graphic that's copywritten, you can be sued, and they would have absolutely every ground, like, to step on to do it. So I'm gonna give you a couple of examples that I've run across or just scenarios I've actually been in. So the first one was I was working it was back when FedEx office was Kinko's, and so I was there, I was a supervisor. This lady came in, we were next door to a Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, it was weird. But this mom comes in and she's like, slaps down this birthday invitation in front of me. She goes, "I need like 5 copies of it." So I slid it back to her and I said, "I can't make copies of that. It's copywritten." And then she, slides it back. She's like, "Oh, I bought it. You have to, you just make some copies." So this is the whole thing. This was the end part because we pushed it back and forth a couple times, and I'm a very, very nice person. I'm very patient when it comes to people that don't know what's going on. So I pushed it back and I said, "Ma'am, you paid for the invitation, but you did not pay for the right to make copies of Dora the Explorer." And so I flipped it over and showed her there's a copyright symbol, and I said, "That would be illegal for me to make a copy." Now, we had a whole spiel, which was, "I have a customer service section over here, and what you do over there is your own business. I am not the copyright police." So I even went over and was just like, "Do this." Like, I walked her through what to do, and we just always had to be super freaking careful about that, because if it's a copywritten piece, you can absolutely get sued. Another thing that happened to me, that one copy shops like that, they're really good about catching it. This one was actually when I worked at Wells Fargo, and I was almost worried about it. So we had built a department, and somehow, for some dumb reason, our one of our clients took a screenshot of a PDF that we sent them because they wanted to use a graphic on it, a graphic they did not pay for, and we did. And so they did that, put it on their website, and we were like, "Oh shit." Well, Getty Images contacted them, and so Getty Images owns just about every image out there. So that was a big deal. Well, I got freaked out because it came from a client that I worked on their stuff prior to us building the national department, and I was very concerned. And it turns out it was someone before me. I don't know if it was the person before me or 2 people before me, but somebody got it, and they had to go find where that person got it. So those are 2 scenarios because that leads to a legal ramification. Wells Fargo would have to pay a huge fine, and then ensure that either nothing happens in the future with that image, or they pay and just say, "Hey, we're bad, my bad. We'll just pay for the royalty so that we can continue to use it." So you have to be really careful about that stuff because Disney will come after you. If you draw Mickey Mouse and try to sell it, you're gonna get sued. And when it comes to copyrights, if you're inspired by something, it has to look different enough that somebody could look at it and tell that they look different. Okay, so if you do like a really derpy Mickey Mouse, you probably get away with it. But if you do an exact copy of Mickey Mouse and sell it, Disney will sue you. They will sue you for everything. So, like, for me, I do a lot of, Star Wars stuff. I have to be very careful. So even then, that's called intellectual property. And so I do a lot of volunteer work and I wear Star Wars costumes, but my groups are recognized by Disney. We have an agreement with Lucasfilms and Disney. And so I've even had to step in front of a camera because someone was trying to get Darth Vader to hold a bag from their store. And I said, "We can't do that. That's advertising. We're not allowed to do that." And so there's a whole scenario that we went through with that to get ourselves covered. But this does become, a very, very cautious, touchy subject. So the question that I'll tend to get asked during class is, well, where can we go get images to use? For starters, absolutely do not go on like Yahoo or Google Images and start pulling stuff off. Those show you copywritten material, so you can't just go and pull an image off there. There are images, I'm sure you're familiar with iStock. That one's actually a really popular one. Vector Easy. There are some places, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones because where I work now, we use some, but I haven't used them recently since we built our own stock. But there are places that use what's called royalty free. And so royalty free images are images where you go and, like, say you pay like a couple bucks to download an image. You can use that image on work, but you cannot sell that image to a client. So let's say the background on this cover. Okay, I went on to iStock, I paid a couple bucks, I'm able to use this image. So I sell this, or I do a cover to a newsletter for Jerry, and then Silas comes along and he likes this image too as a sample I did. Well, I could still sell, that layout or whatever to him. I just can't sell the image to them. So if iStock comes back and goes, well, wait, so how did this go down? I could go, oh no, I did magazine covers for them. That's how they got a hold of these images. And then I can show that I have a royalty-free purchase, showing that that I purchased the image to use for my purposes. I'm just not allowed to sell that image. Okay. So be really cautious about that stuff. Now, there is a site called Pixabay, and Pixabay is free. They actually, like, you can go on, they have a license you download that shows, as long as you can link it back and show that you got it from Pixabay, you're fine. Okay. So be very, very, very cautious where you get photos from. All right. If you get into a pinch and you're not sure, let me know. I'm happy to walk you through it. 23 years plus the time at the print shop. I have a whole perspective of experience when dealing with copywritten, trademark, intellectual property, and stuff like that. Okay. Trust me. And then if you're doing work for clients, like say you're freelancing something, what I do is I go to sites that are like the royalty freeze, and then I pull down the graphic version that has the watermarks on it. And then I've had clients be like, well, wait, this has got like some like writing on it. I know I'm not going to purchase an image if you don't want it. So if the client likes that image, well, then you just go ahead and purchase the real thing and throw it in there. But if they don't, then you didn't waste any money. Make sense? Excellent. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, in the future, if you're dealing with anything like that and you have questions, please hit me up. I'm happy to help you out with that because I absolutely do not want you to get in legal trouble. Okay. So just keep that in mind. If you ever have a question on it, you're just unsure, hit me up because I'm happy to help you out. Nobody needs to get sued by Disney. Nobody. Okay. So let's jump back into this. All right. So what I tell my classes all the time is I do not check that box. I always want to see this. This is your last step. And InDesign's reminding you, hey, just please make sure that you don't have anything that's copywritten in here. Okay. But if you're working someplace, like even where I work at, we have stock photography. They have everything in place to protect us for people. I'm experienced, but the other two designers are not. They're not as experienced as me. So we're gonna go ahead and hit OK because we know everything's all right here. This is one of the reasons I leave things wrong on purpose. So what's really cool is that it will tell you if you have text overflow. Remember, that's where there's too much text to fit in a box. So it actually will tell you this. I know it's there. Don't worry about it. So let's go ahead and hit OK. But it is good to know that it's going to tell you. This has to do, I don't know why, but this always pops up, even if everything in my document is set to CMYK. But that's what this is addressing. It has to do with your CMYK versus RGB. I ignore this, especially if I already know for a fact everything's CMYK. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And it's actually going to go ahead and start to create its package. Da, da, da. All right, so what it's done now is it's created the package. So I'm actually just going to share my whole screen. So I'm going to, when I look at my lesson 13 folder, I have a folder called package. So package, I'm air quoting, is actually just referencing a folder that's self-contained. All right, so if you will go ahead and wherever you saved that folder, go ahead and find that folder and let's take a look inside. So like I said, this is a self-contained folder. It's a package. So everything's here. We have the IDML file. Again, that's for if somebody is using
You're muted.
And then there we go. Can you guys hear me now? Yes, you can. All right, I can see it, the little thing going. All right, thanks, y'all. So basically in this folder, like I said, it's self-contained. And so you'll see the 3 files. I'm just going to go back in case you guys missed it all. My other headset, the battery died. So you'll see the IDML file. And so that's the one for if somebody's using InDesign and they're using an older version in comparison. You'll see that our regular INDD file, which is our standard for the current version. And then if you look at the PDF, look at the file size, man. That's 1 meg comparison to the 6 megs of the actual InDesign document. And even then, the actual InDesign document doesn't have the pictures embedded. So technically, even with all the photos, if they all got put in there, that file would be significantly larger. So I'm going to real quick backtrack. So whenever we started the class and we were looking at the PDF presets, I mentioned that small file size is excellent for sending out PDF proofs. That's why these are small enough that they can be emailed, and they're also going to be low quality so that the client can't print something until they get your approval on there and they pay you. Remember, make sure that check clears first, right? So you'll see that there's a document fonts folder and a links folder. So what we're going to go ahead and do is take a look at first the document fonts. So when we open that up, you'll see that there are the 4 fonts that we saw listed. So we have Minion Pro Regular, and then the 3 Myriad Pro fonts that are in there. So that's good. And then this Adobe LST file. So Adobe has an application that allows you to turn fonts on and off. If you've never run across one of those, they're very useful if you have a ton of fonts. Photoshop, if you ever watched it, runs through all your fonts. InDesign does too. I think Illustrator does as well. So the more fonts you have, the longer it takes to open the program. But on top of that, if it gets to a certain point, it'll crash. So there's actually an application that allows you to turn fonts on and off for Adobe to recognize them. But this is a file that would allow you to install these fonts into that program. My personal font collection is not that big, so I don't have to use it. But I just want to explain what that file is. The most important thing that you're really looking at in here are the 4 fonts that are listed. Let's go ahead and back up one step, and then we're going to go into the links folder here. So I always find it funny when we're going through the lessons and I see a links folder because that's what it is. It's full of images. So just like what we were looking at with the links folder, is exactly what we're looking at now. So in our scenario, our server is in Alaska, and it's got 100 images for this one newsletter, but we only use 20 images. So here you go. These are the 20 images that are actually, or 19 images that are actually being used in our document. They're all contained inside here. And that one checkbox that said relink, what it did is instead of our InDesign file inside the package, looking at the server in Alaska, it's going to look at this folder inside the package. This folder is completely self-sufficient. If I send this off to Uthman, it's got the fonts in case he doesn't have them. It's got the links for the images, and it's got the InDesign folder. It's got everything he needs, and then it's also got a PDF to show him exactly what the newsletter is supposed to look like. Does that make sense, y'all? So this is actually this is the last step you do whenever you're done with everything. So now I'm going to tell you my favorite part of the lesson. So this is not what you send to the printer. Printers freaking hate this. Long time ago, I think it was about 8 years ago, I had a student in the class, and he actually was the manager at a print shop. And when I found out what he did, that's why I always ask, like, what do you do and why are you here? So one day I told him, I said, hey man, I'm going to ask you to be part of the lesson. Like, I need you to input something. And so that's what it was. I said, yeah, isn't that right, Michael? Printers hate these things. And he turns to the entire class and he goes, yep. So the reason they don't want this is there's too many problems. They don't need all these images on their system. They don't need these fonts. I mean, they probably might, but they really don't. This package itself, I'm going to back up. Oops, I got to back up one step. Lesson 13. Here we go. So this whole package itself is 36 megs. So I can't even email this, even if I can like zip it up. Now,
for really, really large files, they'd have you send it to an FTP. But even then, like that's it, they just don't want to deal with this. They probably aren't using the same version of InDesign. So the question then goes to, well, then what the heck are we going to actually send the printer? Well, I'll tell you in a second, because the next question is, then why the hell did you show us this? So there actually is a reason I show you this. This is an excellent archive. It's exactly what this is. So basically, when you get done with the newsletter, I got everything right here. So let's say that like, I'm making a book and it's through 236 pages. It's beautiful. It's a work of art, I need to go back later and change something. Well, I have everything here. Or, oh man, I remember that I used this image in this one book and I want to reuse that image. I've got the image here because I used it in a book. And then let's just say, because we had 100 different files from them, that's like 200 gigabytes. Well, I'm only keeping 19. So I can delete everything else because I have all my images right here in that links file. These are the only images I need to keep. So this is an excellent archive. And actually, that's been something that's happened before where I actually was a book I worked on. So when I was at the book publisher, somebody called, a photographer's lawyer called to let us know that we did not credit them for a set of images that were being used, ironically, by MGM Studios or MGM brand, like the casinos. And so we were like, well, we have a waiver. And that's something to keep in mind too. If images are being provided to you, make sure that, and you can find this online, but you can find a waiver for them. And what it does is it takes responsibility off of you and puts it on the client. It is a legal document that you sign and they sign, and it protects you. And in this scenario, because this really did happen, that's what the owner had to fax to the lawyer just to show that we're not responsible for it because they give us the information and provide the files. So they apparently provided us incorrect information. So the lawyer contacted MGM, everything got smoothed out. We went ahead and credited the photographer for the second edition. So I actually, because it was my book that I worked on, I had to go back into the archive files and then I had to make those changes and then save it, re-archive everything, send it off to the printer so they had it for second edition. So that's again, I tell you, copyrights and everything, those are super serious things. People take them very seriously. So getting back to our lesson. So archiving is actually a good idea. It can save you some space. Okay. The next step. So the answer to the first question there was, of the question, what do I do? What do I send the printer? What they really want are high-res PDFs because they are self-contained files. We created a self-contained folder called a package, but the printer actually wants a high-res PDF. So we're going to walk through this process, and I'm going to show you, basically the settings that you want to pay attention to. I know that we would normally take a break, but we're basically almost done with the lesson. So what I'm thinking is let's finish this lesson, take a break, and then we'll go ahead and knock out the last lesson, and then we'll be done for the time, okay? So I'm actually going to take a step that's going to be different than you, and I'll tell you that step when we get there, and because I want you to see how it's different, all right? So I'm back in my document. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and I'm going to go to Adobe PDF Presets. So go to the File menu at the top and go to Adobe PDF Presets. Now, at the very first day of class, I told you there were 3 things in this area, in this menu, that I actually cared about: high quality print, press quality, and small file size. So again, small file size is fantastic for sending proofs, okay? Now, I want y'all to choose the high quality print, okay? I'm going to choose press quality. I just want to be able to show you guys that there's not a big difference. So choose high quality print. All right, so I'm going to save this inside my package so that way we can look at file size differences, okay? So I've got it in here. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say for this one, I'm going to call this file final. Generally, that's a really good idea to put at the end so that nobody mistakes it as like a variation, like a version. I always put down like a newsletter or fall newsletter final. That way everybody knows this was the final file. This was the one that was approved. So I'm going to call this file final, just so that I can tell the difference between the two. Use InDesign document name, whatever. I don't care about that checkbox anyways. Go ahead and hit save. And this is going to open up another panel. All right. So at the top, you're going to have high press quality. I've got high print quality. I've got press quality. No big deal. Down here towards the bottom, pages. So we have all pages. It's not often when you're doing it, setting stuff up that you're going to want certain pages, but just in case you want, you can select certain pages or a page range. Viewing. This is the part. This could actually change your life a little bit. So this selection or this menu that says viewing, it says default. Have you ever opened a PDF and it's like super zoomed in and takes up your entire screen and it's super annoying? I'm going to help you with that. So what you do is you choose where it says default for view, just change it to fit page. Literally, when they open your document, it's going to fit the entire page onto the screen. So it won't be like super zoomed in and they won't be, overwhelmed and freaked out. Okay. For layout, you can do single page, you can do 2-page, it's up to you. I'm going to leave it on default just so we can see what that option is. You can do open in full screen mode if you wanted. I wouldn't do that because it forces the person's computer to do that. And a lot of people don't know how to get out of that. But I do like to check the box view PDF after exporting. I personally like to look at my PDFs. I will warn the Mac users that sometimes Macs will open up a separate program, like it'll open Safari or whatever the default is for PDFs. Just be aware of that you just have to tell it that Acrobat is the default for that stuff. But you can also just go in afterwards, like close it and then open it up in Acrobat. So it's not a big deal. Embed page thumbnails, not worried about that. We're going to talk about it in the next lesson, but hyperlinks and bookmarks and things these are interactive aspects. We'll talk about those in a bit, but these would be check marked, but not for this specific export. On the left side, I want you to go ahead and click on compression. And so this is where we're going to see the difference. My numbers are different than yours. So mine say 300 by 450, 300 by 450, 1200 by 1800. Honestly, both settings, whether it's press quality or high quality print, whatever, they will yield the same results. You'll end up with a really high res PDF. If somebody tells you specifically to choose something, choose that. But if you have your choice, it's up to you between those two. You're going to still end up with a really beautiful PDF at the end. Okay. So I'm not going to change anything here. On the left side, let's go to marks and bleeds. I actually do want to get in here and show you. This is a really important one to look at. So for example, where it says marks, we have all different types of marks. There's crop marks, bleed marks, registration marks, color bars, and page information. So if you're not sure what these are, don't worry. We're about to go over them when we look at our PDF. So let's go ahead and check the box for all of them. Crop marks, these are actually like the outside of your document, like where the bleed is. I'm going to back that up. Crop marks are actually where they cut into the image to make it look like it printed to the edge. That's actually like there's little marks, and we'll take a look at them in a bit. Bleed marks, these actually mark where the bleed is. You normally don't need these. I'm just going to check the box so that you guys can see what they look like. Registration marks, these you more than likely don't need, but I have worked at a place that needed these. In the book publisher, because of the way that the books were made, they actually did use registration marks. And I'll explain how those are used when we look at the PDF. The color bars will be there. I'm sure you probably have seen these before. In the page information. You normally, out of all of this stuff, the one thing that you would more than likely need the majority of the time would be your crop marks. But you can talk to your printer about that. Literally call your printer up and just say, hey, I'm going to make a PDF to send to you guys to print. This document has a bleed on it. What settings would you like me to set for the PDF? Do you need crop marks? They will literally either send you a file to put in as a PDF preset, or they'll tell you what settings to do. You're basically helping them. All right. So you can always follow those, but like I said, crop marks are probably what you might need most of the time. Otherwise, probably don't need anything in there. We're going to look at bleed and slug. When we talked about slug before, it's the area that you can put information and it doesn't print unless you tell it specifically to print, and you have to go through a set of menus. Ta-da, there's a checkbox, include slug area. That is the only way it prints slug, and it does not remember that setting. So you have to go in each time and tell it to print the slug area. So, but don't worry about that. Like I told you all before, I've only worked at one place that ever talked about the slug area. And even then, after that, I've never run across it. But I do want to show you this bleed area. So we do know our document has a bleed. I can see it back there in the background, behind my panel. So you can actually check this box if your document already has a bleed set up. But let's just say that you accidentally set this up and you forgot to put the bleed in there, and holy crap, you're already at this point and you're at the deadline and you got to get this out the door, right? You can actually go in and tell it a specific bleed. And so this is like your last chance bleed setting. So, you could set that. We're going to go ahead and check the box because we do have a bleed setting already set. Don't worry about the slug checkbox. You ain't got to do that. So we checked all the print marks because I want to show you guys what they look like. And then we checked the use document bleed settings because I want to show you, because we already have bleed settings in there. We're not done yet. Let's go over to the left side again. One last thing I actually want to show you over here, and it's the security tab. Excuse me. So I actually have had to use this because people were altering PDFs without telling us. And then when we would come the next year, they'd be like, hey, this isn't the right information. Why don't you have this updated? Because you didn't use the right channels and you didn't do the proper process. So I don't have the most recent document. You can actually password protect your stuff. This is excellent if you want to prevent people from printing or copying or altering anything inside your document. It's really cool. I have used it before in a corporate setting, so I always like to show my classes that this is a way that you can password protect something. A lot of really big corporations do that. Mine has been with the insurance companies, having to work with them. So I've actually run across a lot of their documents that are copywritten. Okay, so just want you guys to know about that one. So we've done all of our settings. Basically, all it was is we set on the very first general tab to under viewing, we set the view to do fit page. And then for the marks and bleeds, we did all the print marks so we can see them. And then our document does have a bleed. So we went ahead and told it to give our document a bleed. So let's go ahead and hit export. Yes, I do know that there's text overflow on page 3. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And so it does its little thing in the background. And because we told it to automatically open up in Acrobat, it's going to open up. Let me know. Just type open in the chat if you've got it opened up now, because it shouldn't take long. So over in the chat, just type open so that A, I know it opened, and B, I know that it's working for you. And that I know that my meeting is still working, or my Zoom is still working. So we did file, PDF presets. And you guys were choosing the high quality print. We did a few settings in that panel. And then we told it, all right, Cameron's got his opened. And remember, whether it's Mac or PC, the last time I ran across it, it was the Macs. But if it opens up a separate program like the viewer, like an image viewer, just close that, go into Acrobat and tell it to open, okay? All right, Uthman's up, got his. Jerry put A, so I'm going to assume that means she got it. Gotcha, okay. And then Silas, let me know if you need a hand with that or if it's not working for you. All right, perfect. So what you're looking at now is your document. And also notice that it did not zoom in to like a super hardcore, zoom in spot of a fountain. So this is a nice little way to open up. So if you look at the top, and you'll see, we'll start there with kind of walking through some of these marks. So the ones that you see that go to the very edge, and you'll notice that these marks, I'm going to zoom in and actually I'm going to share like the actual screen too. So when we are looking at all these marks here, there we go. The first one that you see on the top left. So these marks, when you cut them, like scissors, whatever, what you're going to notice is that they don't actually touch. So you would never see them. There's nothing left behind. When I worked at the print shop, I've actually used these marks to cut things like large posters. So the first ones that are on the very, very outside, those are your bleed marks. So what they do is they actually mark where the bleed is. You normally don't need these, okay? Because if you got crop marks, you're already going to crop these, through there. So there's no point in seeing the bleed marks. These next marks that actually cut into the image, these are your crop marks. So we would use really, really, really long rulers that just cover the whole surface from crop mark to crop mark. And you can literally just go with a razor blade and slice it and then cut off that piece. And it makes it look like you printed to the edge. This is how they do a lot of documents like that, like oversized poster prints, things like that. So they actually use these. These are crop marks. This is what the printer would use. This grayscale, this black to white color bar, it's a monotone monotone bar. So it just shows you your grayscale inside there. And then if we scooch across, there's a color bar that's got cyan, magenta, yellow, black, red, green, blue, and it's got pastels as well for the cyan, magenta, yellow, black. These two are actually used by the printer on proofing. It's to show what a color looks like. This is how they can tell if a printer needs to be calibrated. And I've done that too with printers where I've had to do calibrations on them so that the printer actually prints a red as a red and not a pink, for example. So that's what the color bars are there for. You really don't need them. The printer does that stuff. They should be calibrating their machines daily anyways. And then this little circle that's at the top center, it's also in the bottom center and the left and the right centers. This is a registration mark. So this is actually used to line pages up, which seems odd. Now, I used them with pieces of glass, but they actually did. I had to sit under like a little microscope piece and then line up things before I glued stuff together. But the printer does use this to do measurements and to help ensure that pages are actually lined up a certain way for when they use the crop marks. When they do documents like this that like have like newsletters or books, it's literally like on an airbed and they just kind of put it in there and they stack everything up and this giant blade comes down and cuts off the excess paper. And they're using those registration marks as measurements and alignment. If we go all the way down to the bottom of the page, on the left side on the bottom, you'll see the name of the file. So 13_start.indd. And then you have today's date for 2024 and then the time that it was made. You honestly probably don't need that information either. I've never had to include that on anything. But I wanted to show you guys like what these PDFs look like. Okay. All right. So I close that down. So basically in summation, that's the lesson for lesson 13. So the package process, we don't normally send that to a printer. They don't want that. There's a lot of problems that can occur or arise out of that. But they're an excellent way to create an archive. So for example, if you're making this in an office setting or whatever, you could actually just package this entire newsletter, throw it on a USB drive or burn it to a CD or DVD if people still do that. That's how old I am. But you can do that and then put that away and then delete the like all your files here because you already saved it. But also, especially if you put it onto a separate piece of media like a USB drive or a disk, that set aside, if your computer crashes or you get a new computer, you don't have to worry about those files. They've already been saved, right? So that's the purpose really of packaging in the professional world. We use it to archive everything. But at the end result, what you really want to do is export a high-res PDF of sorts. And that's what you're going to send to the printer because the PDF is self-contained. You don't have to worry about fonts because they stay inside the PDF. You don't have to worry about the images because they're inside the PDF. And actually, if I even go back and look at this file, the print size PDF is 5.8 megs. The InDesign file is 5.9 megs. And then the small sized PDF is a meg. So that kind of gives you an idea, like it's easier to send that PDF. It's just one PDF versus the 36 megs that package was. So you're looking at the difference of 36 megs versus 6 megs. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And if you ever get stuck and someone's like, yeah, package this InDesign file, and you're like, oh, crap, hey, reach out to me or go back over this lesson. Packaging is really basic and it walks you through everything. We don't normally do pre-flight and professional settings because that's the start of the packaging process. And pretty much right before you actually tell it to finally package, you have like 3 or 4 stops that you can stop and exit out and you don't have to package. It's not a big deal.